Ones to identify are where's the highlight, and then if there's a core shadow, where the core shadow is. And then, look for where your midtones are and look for where your cast shadows are. So for me, where I'm sitting, my core shadow, the strong light source is to the left, the window, so my core shadow is over here. So I'm going to use the pencil, shade sideways. All right, try to show the form of the object. All right, and then fade that core shadow out into the midtones so that I can show, a pretty sort of realistic representation of that three-dimensional form. You can use your blending stump. The blending stump is going to be really helpful, especially in the midtones, where a nice, light, kind of smooth application of the blending stump will give you some really smooth, really smooth marks. I've got like I said, I've got a cast shadow under here. The cast shadows look a little different than the core shadows sometimes, just because of the way that they're shaped. The important thing with cast shadows is to not outline them. Don't make a heavy outlined border. Okay, it's not an actual form. It's not an object. It's just the absence of an object. So the tones may be even, but they're not going to have outlines. All right, so just do your best to try to represent those shapes you see with the cast shadows and try to show that. Got core shadows on this side, over here. I'm not going to do everything. I'm just going to go around and identify the different areas that I've got to shade, and then I'll finish the drawing while you guys are working. This whole side for me is core shadow. And then on the spool underneath, the core shadow should be almost the same as the one on top, because they are two cylinders, and they're in the same position, really. Just one is higher up than the other one. All right, this one down below presents some extra challenges because of the cast shadows, because I've got cast shadows overlaying on top of core shadows, which makes for definitely an extra challenge, because now I'm trying to combine the two together, try to have them, be clear. The more you look, the more you'll probably see that there's a lot of subtleties within the cast shadows themselves. You're going to see areas where things appear to be a little bit lighter because you've got reflected light. There's going to be places where it appears a little bit darker because of, the proximity to the object, like how far away from the object the cast shadow starts. If that makes any sense, for example, underneath things, like very close to the edges of the object is usually where the cast shadows appear to be pretty dark. And then it starts to lighten up a little bit. I've got a midtone here. And then as I get to the edge of the cast shadow, it starts to get a little bit dark again. All right. Let's slide this up. Same thing underneath the spool on the table. The spool is actually sitting just above the table because there are some bolts on the underside, and those bolts create a little bit of lift. So there's a slight gap under the object, so the cast shadow that's right under the spool itself is actually pretty dark. And then it starts to fade a little bit, get lighter as it goes off to the side, like that. All right, so there's a lot more that I need to do here. I don't want to take up all your time and make like a 9-minute video drawing everything. But what I'll do is keep drawing, keep recording. I'll time-lapse the drawing part, and then I'll post the picture at the end. All right, extra challenge. If you're done and you want an extra challenge, because I'm not going to give you guys a new assignment to start today, you should see tables, the two tables that are underneath the spool. They're in a T shape, perpendicular to each other. where, depending on where you're sitting in the room, those angles are going to look a little bit different. Try to show the tables that the object is sitting on. Do your best to try to show those. In the drawing. Yeah, as much of them as you can see. You're not going to see all of them, and this is definitely a challenge. And if you want to try it out and you feel like you're not up to it, that's fine. But I'll show you what I see right now. So the spool is sitting on a table that's kind of parallel to me in terms of how I'm sitting. So I'm going to find the back edge of that table, and I'm going to sketch it in. And then I'm going to see if I can see the front edge of that table, and I can. So I'm going to sketch that in. All right, but I don't see the sides of the table. That's cut off. All right, and I'm using eye level. I'm using my knowledge of eye level, and where I see that back edge of that table, I see that it intersects just above that lower disc. So that's how I decide where that back edge of the table is going to be. Then the challenging one, the table that's going away from me in space. This is where it gets really tricky. And these tables have rounded corners too, which adds to the challenge. Table starts about there. How do I know where the back edge of the table is? Am I just going to draw a random angle and hope that it's right? All right, there's a better way to do it. I'm going to line up where the back edge intersects in space with the spool and make a guideline. Okay, and then I connect those together. And then that's my table. Why does it look so short? Anyone know? Yeah, perspective and angles, exactly. Okay, and there's a term for that. It's called foreshortening. Okay, foreshortening happens when anything is either going towards you or away from you in space. You're going to get a compressed view of that object. So perspective and angle, I think is what you guys said, right? All right. That's exactly what foreshortening is. Okay, you're going to know if it looks wonky. If it looks wrong, you're going to know. It's going to look weird. It's going to look like somebody stood a table on its end. All right? So play around with that foreshortening and see if you can draw those tables. All right, that's bonus extra credit, though. That's only if you're finished with your shading and you feel like you're up to the challenge. Okay?